smells good right now.
Mm-hmm.
So counting the.
Cost of being a general contractor.
Oh, cool. So what is that about?
General contracting, so basically we work with insurance companies to restore their properties after storms hit. So for example, in Texas, we have a lot of hail damage. We also have a lot of flooding. So basically, we work with the insurance companies to repair the projects.
Oh.
And as a general contractor, we do everything from roofing to drywall to water extraction, pipe repair, electric work, and both in residential and commercial.
Wow, that's fantastic. Because I'm interested
Yeah.
in country living, and you sound like you have all the skill set to build anything, fix anything.
Well, yeah. Well, it becomes repetitive. It becomes repetitive. I think. Especially because usually whenever there's a storm, the same things keep on getting broken over and over again. So it becomes repetitive. I think that building a house from the ground up would be slightly more complicated, but when you do the same things over and over again, you learn them.
Wow. So would you say you can build any structure, or is that something that requires more skill, I guess? Because it sounds like you're fixing things.
Right. Well, I think it requires more coordination because, for example, what I do, let's say with the roofing, when I do the hail damage claims, right? Let's say there's hail damage that comes, usually it impacts five things. It impacts the roof, it impacts the gutters, it impacts the fence, and maybe it'll cause a leak and impact the painting and the drywall and the windows, right? So there's five trades. And those are they're not, I wouldn't say it's very simple to do, but they're the same trades. And usually damage manifests itself in the same way throughout those trades. But of course, if you were to build a house, now you're talking about many, many, many different variables and different trades. So, I mean, there's obviously, there'd be the foundation work, there'd be, you'd have to have engineers involved, architects involved, a lot of permitting, so on and so forth. So building a house, even though the construction may only take, a month, the process can end up taking 5 months because you have so many different parties and you're working with so many different professionals and coordinating them, right? So I think that's the difficulty, and I have never ventured into that side, but definitely that's something that's on the to-do list.
Yeah, as a non-professional, non-expert, it looked similar. It looked similar. I guess it's totally different task.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that job?
Sales. I did construction sales when we moved to Texas. And then after doing construction sales, I started learning more about the process. More than anything, the complicated part is dealing with insurance companies. It's not actually doing the work itself, but it's dealing with the insurance companies and sort of speaking their language and understanding that process. But I was doing sales, and eventually I got more into the back office side of things. And then when I learned the sales and I learned the process, I decided to give it a shot and to start my company. So it was interesting.
Wow, this is your own company. You're running your own company.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I thought you were one of the employees, but you're the boss.
Yeah. So it happened, and then so from there on, it worked very well, and then we started, we opened up another roofing company in Oklahoma, and then the water extraction company, which is also here in Dallas and in Houston. I have an office over there too. So it picked up quickly, and that's kind of the incredible thing here in Texas is you have there's a lot of construction land. It's very cheap, and because of that, construction is incredibly sought after.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So you started as a salesperson, but what were you selling?
No, I was selling these contracts, right? Because when gain customers in construction projects. So, for example, let's say there's a big storm, right? You still need, every construction company still needs to have a sales division to find clients, right? And that's what I was doing, is I was part of the sales division. I was looking to find clients, and then eventually, eventually, as I said, I learned the sales, and I got good at the sales, and I learned the back office side of things, and just put two and two together. So.
Oh, so the clients that needed fixing.
Correct. Yeah. So it's pretty incredible because let's say there's a big hailstorm, it hits per zip code. So when a hailstorm hits, it affects 100,000 homes, let's say. And there's obviously different software to figure out where it hailed, and sometimes you don't even need the software because it's in the news, right? Or you're driving by and you start seeing neighborhoods where all the cars are damaged, right, by hail. They have the holes in the metal, right, because of the ice. And you just stop and you start talking around to the clients, and that's how you attend clients, right? Hey, what's going on? And Texas is the perfect, there's probably 10 or 20 states that are affected by hail on a yearly basis, and Texas is one of the states that's affected by hail most. So every single year, there's about 4 or 5 hailstorms. So, I have clients that, have had a storm every single year that I've been in business. I replaced a roof maybe, 3, 4 times in 5 years. So.
Wow. So initially you were walking around and talking to people, you need this service and we can offer this service, and do you want to sign the contract, and then
Correct.
you moved on to actually fixing things and then starting your own company.
Starting my own company with the sales division and so on and so forth. So now, yeah, it's interesting, and now I think the company has a lot more. It's got a lot more reputation in Texas and also in Oklahoma. That now we have clients that are coming to us as well. So it was fun, man.
Wow, it sounds like you're doing really good in your business. It's not like just one office, it's like all over the places.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, it's fun, but it also comes with working. Working company shirt on a Sunday night, right?
So I guess you're on call every time they need you.
Well, yeah, no, I wouldn't say on call. It's just it's a lot because I think that the growth supersedes the. You always have something to do because it's growing so fast. I mean, it's never like, something happens, an opportunity arises, and usually what happens is, I don't like saying no, right? So, and of course, if you have a big potential client that's, in need of X, Y, and Z, you want to accommodate them. So, especially if you know the skill. So, for example, with the other company, with the water mitigation company, we had a client, and he had a very large church, and it was completely flooded.
Wow.
And we needed to buy last minute. We had to buy, over 90 fans, dehumidifiers, and everything. And that's what makes the job, or I guess that's what contributes to the workload. It's because you have these opportunities, and they're great opportunities, right? And you have to accommodate them, right? You always have to accommodate them, and obviously, the more successful and the better you are accommodating clients, the more clients seek your service. So it kind of never stops, but it's fun.
Wow. So, well, obviously you didn't start your own company before. I mean, right away. You were employed initially, and then how long did you work before you started your own?
About a year and a half.
Wow. So you learned, I guess, all the basic, the things that you repeatedly do for a year and a half, and then what made you think that, oh, I gotta start my own?
Well, I think it was in in California. When we were in California, I tried to start this application, right? and I always wanted to do something, you know. I mean, if you remember, even at Andrews, you know, I always liked, you know, organizing, doing something. And when I went to Cali, you know, it was always fun. And then when we moved to California, I tried to start this application, and it was like a major failure uh, because obviously when you start an application, your upfront costs are huge, right? You're huge because unless you know how to program yourself, or unless the application that you're wanting to create is simple, typically you're going to need to pay other programmers and whatnot to help you create. And that's why a lot of these companies that start applications, they have to get investors. So I thought I could do it on my own, and I ended up hiring overseas labor. But of course, there's the disconnect in communication when it comes to interface and a lot of different aspects of the app. So anyway, that I ran out of money, and sort of along the way, I wasn't too fond of how it was coming along, but I always wanted to start something. And you know, when we moved here, I mean, initially I didn't like it. You know, I was in sales, as I said, and you know, when you're filling these contracts, I mean, even though I always loved sales, when you're selling these contracts, there was a lot of, you know, I mean, it was door knocking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were knocking first because you were seeking clients, right? Either knocking doors or calling them on the phone, but you know, now everybody has cell phone, and with the cell phones, you can't, you know, pretty much, well, a lot of people are on the do not call list. So, and you know, those cell phone numbers are very difficult to find very difficult. Usually the landlines are the public information. So anyway, you had them outdoors, and then I had to climb these roofs, and I was afraid of heights, and then, you know, and then it was just kind of like one of these things that, and I wasn't good at it, right? For about 5 or 6 weeks, I couldn't sign a contract, and I was like running out of money because I didn't know, like it wasn't clicking, you know. And then it clicked. And then it clicked because I remember, I mean, I saw the opportunity, and I said, well, if this person, this person, this person, this person can do it, and they're not as talented as I am, right? Eventually, I'll figure out a way to do it. So I think at one point it became more of a stubbornness, right? It kind of like my stubbornness superseded logic. I was like, everything was telling me, you know, I mean, people weren't necessarily telling me that I should quit, but, you know, I come home, and it wasn't necessarily my wife, but I remember one time I came home, and my wife was over with her family in Plano, and you know, and I came home, and I was like, it was a long day, it was like my 5th week, and I still didn't sign a contract, and I was like paying for my own gas for money that I had saved over the past years, and I came home, they looked at me like, with pity, you know, like they were happy, you know, they were like, oh, you hard working, good job, but, you know, and they were, at one point, they were just like, man, I hope this guy realizes that he needs to look for something else. They were always very supportive, but you know, I could see it now looking back at it on their face. But they were like, I hope he does something else here. But you know, it's 5 or 6 weeks without anything. So, you know, it was fun, and then it clicked. And I think anything, right? I mean, eventually, every new skill, you can't learn it overnight, but when you learn it, right? I mean, people go to college for a long time to learn their trade, and I think that sometimes, you know, we expect to learn a new skill or a new trade overnight, right?
Yeah.
But you have to realize that people go to learn new skills. They go like us, right? We went to college, we spent thousands upon thousands of dollars to learn something new and years upon years. But whenever it comes to business or building a new skill, I think everybody expects it to happen overnight. And if they can't grasp it overnight, they think they're a failure or they think it's not for them. But it's, you know, that's really not the case. You just need to have more patience, just like anything else. You know, it was fun.
Man, I totally understand how you have felt because I was knocking on doors also to Canvas. I was getting the religious family literature out as a canvasser 2 summers, 10 weeks each, and I almost got kicked out of the program because I was selling so little, and they were like, you're consuming more money than you're making, so you better keep up or you better be kicked out. So I totally understand how that can be very frustrating, and I can't even imagine 5 weeks of nothing coming in, and then it's just everything clicked. And so I guess it wasn't one person company in the beginning. You pulled different people over, and then you started with different people, right?
Yeah, well, uh, initially it was a one person company because I was selling my own projects and I was doing everything, right? I mean, I was doing the billing, I was doing the ordering, I was doing the project supervision, I was doing the selling. And obviously, when you're a one person show, you do everything you have to know a lot, but you also can't produce a lot, right? I mean, you can't because you're one person. But no, initially it was one. Being a
Okay.
general contractor means that you subcontract your workers. So the only employees that I have are my salespeople. So my salespeople are my direct employees. But
Oh.
the people that actually do the work, a lot of them are subcontracted, right? And
Oh.
they're subcontractors that I use on a daily basis. But at the same time, what people don't realize is as a general contractor, let's say if you're a general contractor, let's say you're a home builder, right? And you do you build, 100 homes a year. There's no way you can keep 100, let's say every home requires 50 workers to build it. There's no way you can have 100 times 50, right, or 5,000 employees on payroll. There's no way you bankrupt the company, right?
Yeah.
So every general contractor uses subcontractors, which basically means that you create agreements with workers saying, okay, on this job, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this on this job, but at the same time, they're not an yearly employee of the company. They're just paid per job. And that's really the only way that construction companies can accommodate um, fluctuating workload, right? Because sometimes in December I have very little work, or
Yeah.
not very little work, but I have a lot less work than I do in the summer. And if I was to keep my summer employees, right, my summer workers during my slow months, I would bankrupt the company, right? So that's what happens in construction is everybody uses subcontractors in
Oh.
order to build the work, and the people that you have on payroll are your salespeople, or your office administrators, or the billing department, the accounting department, but everybody else that builds it, are subcontractors. And of course, it's very important that you develop legitimate relationships and that you are very selective in the subcontractors you choose. Luckily for us, I'm able to use the same subcontractors for years now, but I think that's one of the reasons why companies fail is because they always want to go for the cheapest price, and they go and they find subcontractors that are cheaper and cheaper so they can make more money per job. And they because they don't have that relationship, they lose control over the quality. So, but yeah, yeah, the company initially just started with me, and then obviously my subcontractors that I would use on jobs, and then slowly but surely, I was able to recruit more and more salespeople over time.
Oh, so your direct employees are your salespeople that are getting all the contracts, and then there are subcontractor labor force, and they sign the contract every time they do it. But because you have built good relationship with them, they stay with you, and they keep
Yeah,
coming back.
correct, correct. Yeah, of course, so for example, you have let's say I have 10 painters, right? And maybe 1 month I have no paint jobs, right? But because they like working with me and they like how they get paid, they like how quickly they get paid whenever I call them next, they prioritize my work. So yeah,
Oh.
that's why it's so important. Yeah, yeah.
So if you keep saying, okay, I'm gonna pay you very little, they're not going to, or I'm going to pay you very late, they're not going to appreciate that. But if you say I'm gonna pay you right away, and then I'm gonna pay a good amount, and they're gonna keep coming back.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't even think necessarily it's about paying them, an exorbitant amount. It's not, as long as you pay them fair market value
Okay, okay.
prices, what they care about is being paid on time, right?
Yeah,
And if you tell them, hey, I'll pay you Friday, pay them Friday, right?
yeah.
And that, the construction world, one of the big issues is, you have a lot of very talented tradesmen, right, that are very good and can build different things, and because they can build different things, they try to start a business, but they don't know how to run the business, and that's the majority of issues. Subcontractors are constantly looking for legitimate contractors, and they're very scared. Whenever I enter into a new relationship with a subcontractor, they always come to me they always are asking me 1,000 questions. Hey, when are you going to pay me? Or hey, can you pay me a deposit? Because they're very afraid. You have so many different roofing companies that just don't pay people. They just the job ends, and then they tell them, "I'm sorry, we ran out of money." And it's like,
Really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And in Texas, construction claims and like the court is not. It's very dismissive of the construction world because there's so much construction going on. They're very dismissive. So, for example, if a subcontractor was to take a general contractor to the court to get the money back, I mean, they would not. It would make no financial sense for them because it could take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months because construction claims are just not a priority in Texas. I mean, it's as I said, and I think that's because there is so much construction going on that if they were to pay attention to every claim, I mean, they'd have no time in their day.
Wow. So they're very vulnerable, but if you treat them right, they're going to really appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah, they'll prioritize you. Yeah, that'd be
Wow.
good.
Wow, that's fantastic. So when you were working for a year and a half to learn that trades,
Yeah.
was it like easy to pick up the like skill right away, or did it take time? And then how was that like? Because when I was in the army, I was doing many different things for the first time, and it was very very demanding. And even when I was canvassing, and have you ever done manual like things like this before?
No, no. I mean, I've a couple of times I tried to repair some roofs just so I could see how it feels like, right? But I haven't done a tremendous amount of manual labor.
Oh, okay. So even before you began to work as an employee, you did a lot of different things before.
Yeah, well, I did inside sales. I did inside sales, and as I said, that was my first job, and then this, doing roofing sales was my second job essentially. I started almost immediately after college. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Wow. So so are there like set things that you do that you were doing like fixing the roof and fixing those like pipes and you learned as you went?
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely learn, right? Because you observe, and obviously the codes, and there's different manuals and different regulations that you have to um, adhere by. Um, but yeah, I mean, you learn, I think you learn, there's resources, right? There's resources, and I think that, you don't have to personally do everything that your company has to offer, for example, but you do want to make sure that you partner with legitimate sources that can do it, right, and that are reputable, right? So that's essentially what we do. Is obviously we want to make sure that we're educated, that we're licensed, that we go through all the requirements, and we partner with subcontracting companies that are, very proficient in what they do. And a lot of times, the companies that we partner with are also partners with other giants in the industry, that maybe have been in business for 20, 30 years. So, the subcontractors that we use a lot of times have done projects for very, very large companies that have quite an establishment in the area. So, yeah. And that's how you ensure that the work is good and that it complies and that will make the customer happy.
Oh, I see. So they go through some sort of certification process, so they're equipped with the skills. But like, how was it like when you were first acquiring the skill before you started your own company? Did you perceive yourself as someone that is uh that had a good eye and hand coordination? Were you always like good at doing manual things?
Um, I think that it's funny you say that because I was just thinking about that today. I was trying to fix something. I was trying to fix something around the house, something super simple, but man, I really suck at this, right? But I think that no, not necessarily. I don't. I was my main thing. I always like I like the design aspect. I was always into the design. That was my main passion. My main fascination was, and will always be. The design and design as it manifests itself in furniture or cars or whatever the situation might be. So I was always big into art and design. The contracting is something that sort of came to it, and then it's, as I said, it's just about employing the people that know how to do right, because there's so many things that we offer, and there's no way that I could ever learn to do all those things myself. It's just and it's like really any large, and again, I'm not a big business by any chance, but when you look at giants out there, the owners of those companies, I mean, let's say Tesla, for example, right? I mean, Musk, I'm sure, knows a lot, right? But he doesn't know everything. And he's got employees that handle things that I'm sure he has no idea about, like marketing and accounting. And of course, he may know a lot about each one of his departments, but he doesn't know it as well as his lead employees, right? That do that all day. And that's essentially that's sort of you have to hire the right people. At one point, you need to sort of let go and trust the people that you hire, right? You hire people based on their qualifications, based on their expertise, based on their background. At one point, you accept the fact that maybe you don't know as much as they do, but you're hiring somebody that knows it better than you, and you trust them to do it all day.
So you don't have to be necessarily better at everything compared to than your employees, but you do need to depend on them and expect the best from them and trust them and
Yeah.
just have that discernment that this person is good and this person, yeah, should go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you studied theology, and so
Yeah.
you decided not to pursue ministry right after you
Yeah.
graduated, or was it something that you decided before you graduated?
Um, it was. No, once I graduated, it was what had happened is, I went and I remember, I was trying to figure out a few things in my life back then, which looking back at it now were very, I think that, Andrews University, where I graduated from and where obviously you attended as well, I think it held us to a very high standard, and I think that's great. Um, I think that's really, really great. But in my opinion, I think it held us to a perfect standard. I think the perfect standard is great as long as you believe that, uh, you know, God's grace, right, fills the gap between your humanity and perfection. But as I said, the aim was always very high. And also for me, I was always an ambitious person. I said, I think in my subconscious, I for some reason always thought that I had to be X, Y, and Z before I would place myself in a position of teaching other people about the Bible. Because I think that one of the worst things you can really do is be a hypocrite as a pastor, right? And I think that you could be a hypocrite in other areas of your life.
Yeah.
If you're somebody that has no influence or maybe has influence over two people and you're a hypocrite, that's still not good. But when you have two, three, 400 people looking at you every single day, I think at that point it's very crucial that you really practice what you preach. And the reason why I say that is because, I mean, if you don't, and any one of those people sees you on the outside, once you leave the church and they see you acting in a way that is not the way you have been teaching or preaching, that those sort of interactions can really destroy a person's faith. And that's another thing, right? Is as pastors, even though that's totally not true, but as pastors, a lot of people in the congregation that view the pastor as sort of almost like a saint-like figure, right?
Yeah.
They're very accepting of other behavior, right? But if they were to see the pastor do something that is unbiblical, right? I mean, it's almost for some people, and it really shouldn't be this way, but I've seen people lose their faith in God because their pastor that they idolized did something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So because of that, I think that pastors they have a very they have to hold themselves to a very high standard. And I think that there are a few things I could have worked on, but there was no reason. I just as I said, I was kept on hoping that at one point I'd be ready to pull the trigger on becoming the pastor, and I just was never ready. And in the meantime, obviously, I had to make a living. So that's how I ended up in sales. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like during your study at Andrews, during your undergrad, I guess you saw something different about your life path other than pastoring. So I guess you already made up your mind to pursue something else during your undergrad years, right?
Yeah. Well, no, not necessarily. I think I graduated, and then I went to California, and yeah, it was sometime. I think you're right. I think it was sometime within the last maybe 5 or 6 months before graduating that I thought, hey,
Wow.
I want I want to become a pastor, but maybe not just yet. Maybe I'm gonna start slow. I'm gonna grow a beard, and and then I'll maybe look a little older and become. I'm kidding, but that was sort of my thought pattern. I'll get out, and then I'll make a living, right? And while I make a living, I'm gonna send out some applications, right?
Yeah.
And then and then I'll get a job, but because everybody was saying, yeah, I was making excuses, right? In other words, so and then obviously I ended up liking sales, and then we decided to move over to Texas, and one thing led to another. Yeah. So
I see.
yeah.
So so the ministry aspect, this horizontal relationship, human to human relationship, interpersonal relationships. Do you think you developed some of them as you were pursuing ministry, and then now is helping them? Do you see any connection in being a salesperson and running your own business? I mean, you're not running the church, but you are running a business. So do you see any connection coming together?
The connection between ministry and
Yeah.
ministry, what I do.
Yeah.
I think that there is a potential. There's a high potential for ministry. Um, I definitely have not utilized it. I think over the years, um, definitely unfortunately, my relationship is not as it was right when I was in college, even when I graduated from college. And I think that the busyness of life, kind of overtakes, or at least for me, overtook a lot of the spiritual aspect. But I think that if it would be a great platform. As a business owner, you have a lot of influence, and also you have a lot of you have influence, and people respect you as long as you respect them. But I think it's a great platform. It's a great platform for sharing ministry, and of course, people. One of the things is people as a business owner, they do come to you, and they'll ask, hey, can I take these days off? And then you ask them, okay, what is it, personal or sick leave? And then they'll say, well, it's personal. Somebody in my family is sick, or whatever the situation is, and obviously that opens up the avenue for discussion. So the avenue for discussion about afterlife, or afterlife, and meaning right heaven, right? What happens when you die, and so on and so forth. Those in those situations, I've noticed that there's a huge potential for ministry. Otherwise, day to day, obviously, there's a lot of stress, and
Yeah. I mean, also, like, didn't you do some sort of like a practicum, like be a youth pastor for this church, or like do this ministry, do this outreach or something, while you're studying at Andrews, as a future pastor, and then like interpersonal skills you picked up at that time, do you think that helped you for sales, and do you think that's helping you as a business owner in relating people? Like,
yeah, no, 100%. Because those all those positions they require. I think whenever you're forced to deal with situations, right? Whenever you're confronted with situations, you figure out a way how to overcome them or how to work through them. And when you're in as a even in leadership, right? I mean, we were always Andrews was always a very social. I think it was a very social school. They really did that right in the sense that they created a lot of social events for us and a lot of avenues for us to share spiritually. Uh, but yeah, those interactions, whether they were with your peers or professors, they forced you to think outside the box. They forced you to really have a deeper look into humanity and psychology, human thought, the human process, the nature of good and evil, and sort of the reasoning rather behind why people do this or do that as opposed to that. And of course, when it comes to transitioning that to sales, sales is huge on reading people, right? Because you may have the same product, but let's say you're selling a car and it's a red car. It's a powerful red car. Maybe the wife wants the car because it's red, or the husband wants the car because it's powerful, but they're not sure. They're not wanting to buy, or something's hesitating them from buying the car. And if you realize that the car's for the wife, but this specific car is out of their budget, you don't show them a less powerful car, you simply show them a red car that's cheaper, right? So I think it's reading people and analyzing and figuring out their motives, right? Their motives behind why they do certain things. And yeah, definitely, theology definitely taught us that.
Yeah, I perceive America as a melting pot where many different ethnicities and cultures come together and relate to each other. But I realized Andrews is very multicultural, multinational, and churches are like that too. But I realized a larger part of America is very segregated. Like same ethnicity groups hang out with each other. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it did help you understand people better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously different parts. Yeah, I think America is, and part of it perhaps is political, and I think but a lot of it also is sort of natural, right? People have a naturally a closer connection with people that they find similarities with, right? Whether it's culture or right? The same way, if I meet a client that's Romanian, 99% of the time, they're a lot likelier to sign up with me because of the background.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So what's your future plan in terms of running business? It sounds like it's expanding.
Yeah. Well, I think I like being busy, Jay. Well, that's the problem. I like it's So there's always new opportunities. I think with the more people you meet, the more opportunities there are for success, and I think that in the beginning it's very difficult to make connections. And then at one point, when people see that, hey, your company is doing X, Y, and Z, it becomes a lot more attractive to other people to present you with opportunities. So I definitely want to, expand my roof. I want to turn Extract now into a franchise in the future. And aside from that, the sky's the limit, I think. Yeah.
So you started in which city first?
In what city?
Yeah.
In Plano.
Plano.
Yeah, Plano, Texas. It's about 25 minutes away north of Dallas.
Okay, so you started there, and then you said you have more offices somewhere else?
Yeah, so I have the main office here in Plano, and I have one office in Oklahoma City, and then another one in Houston, Texas, and then I have the Extract now that's also located the Extract now is out of Dallas. That's a lot of company.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have like one main office and like 3 more branches?
Yes.
Ah, that's big. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that's good, man.
Wow, that's amazing. Because I teach at home and students come here and I'm running my business, but like running your branches somewhere else and letting somebody manage it is a whole different like level.
It's just, I think, it's just a lot of, it just, at one point, it just becomes a little, um, the human dynamic, right? Again, that's the biggest challenge of running a business is as it gets bigger and bigger, you have more opportunity for politics, for stressful situations, for stressful interactions, and it's that's what makes it difficult at a certain point, right? Because clients will always be clients, and issues as they pertain to construction or incidentals will always be the same. But as you grow a company and you have more and more employees, the inner dynamic becomes more and more stressful because sometimes you have somebody that produces very, very well, but they're very, very difficult to work with other people. And you always have to wonder, okay, well, how do I accommodate this person who's very good at their job, but yet very stressful, right?
Yeah.
Or how do I accommodate, or how do I know when to let go of somebody who maybe is very nice, very friendly, loved by everybody, but at the same time not very good at their job, right? So I think that's what makes it difficult. Makes it difficult.
Wow, that's interesting. It sounds like it sounds like it sounds like in a sense running a church.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm a psychologist, right? A therapist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess franchising is a next step that you would like to take in the future. I guess running three different branches through managers are not the same thing as franchising, right?
Yeah, I get franchising. Well, franchising, a couple of things need to happen before you can franchise is one of the things is brand recognition. Brand recognition has to be very, very huge, right? Because that's one of the main reasons behind somebody buying into a franchise is okay, it's a recognized name. Second thing is the process has to be perfectly executed and easy to replicate, via whether that's manuals or whatever the situation is. So those two things need to happen. And I, with Extract now, I think it's going to be a lot more likely for it to develop into a franchise because um, it's a lot more complicated than roofing. Roofing is complicated too, but there's certain businesses make more sense to franchise than others, and that has to do obviously with how complicated are the processes, right? And will you find buyers that are willing to pay the 10% royalty fees in exchange for your information, even though that they know that 10% of the revenue is going right out the door, right?
Wow.
You have to make it appealing. You have to make it worth it for them.
So you haven't. I mean, you're contemplating it, but you're not going to do it next month. You're gonna take more time and think more about it, right?
Well, yeah, no, well, brand recognition, right? So it's gonna take. I would say that I think before a company can franchise, they need to be in business at least about 5 or 6 years, because otherwise, as I said, if I were to go to a buyer now and say, "Hey, you want to buy my franchise?" They're gonna say, "Well, hey, man, you just had 20 projects." You know what I mean? Or you just because Extract now is a newer company, right? So Extract now, we started a couple of months ago, and that one exploded, and we have some very large projects that we're doing. But if I was to go to a buyer, they'd say, well, Radu, what's going on? Because yeah, I understand you have a great process, but why would I pay 10% of my income to a company that's not recognized? But let's say if I go back in 5 years, and by this time I did 5,000 projects all over Texas, and they've seen my banner and they've seen my signs and they've seen the billboard, right? At that point, it makes sense. He's like, okay, I'm going to purchase this franchise. I'm going to use your name legally because I'm going to get clients a lot more easily.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah.
how long have you been around as a company?
The roofing, 3 years.
3 years. And then you said like fixing different things is also part of it. That's something separate.
Yeah, so what I mean by roofing is, the roofing is obviously the biggest trade. You know, the average roof will cost anywhere between 15 and 20,000. And then obviously we're along with that trade because when people file claims, let's say there's a hailstorm and the insurance adjuster comes out, he's going to find damage to the roof, he's going to find damage to the fence, to the gutters, maybe to the interior.
Okay.
So it take care of all that, right? We don't just do the roof and leave. One of the cool things about employing us is we really take care of the customer from A to Z, right? We handle everything.
I mean, I saw your Facebook and I saw the roof, but I guess the roof is more symbolic term to include repairing house items in general, right?
Correct. Yeah. So from a marketing point of view, it's fairly accepted in this, and that's why we added the general contractor because initially it was just my roof, and
Yeah.
but typically my roof is when in marketing because everybody's looking for a roofer, right? And the other small things, and also the majority right now for us, even though we will take on smaller projects as well, as a company, if we were to dedicate our efforts, if we were to just simply call ourselves a general contractor without the focus on roofing, it wouldn't make much sense because in this industry, everybody's looking for a specialist, right? And it's sort of implied that the specialist has access to other trades, but we just want to advertise ourselves as a roofing company first and foremost.
Wow,
right?
That's fantastic. Okay, I just have two more questions left, and then we'll be done with it. So the first one is, what is your philosophy as a business owner in terms of satisfying your employees and getting a great job done for the clients?
Yeah, so I think that the client, ensuring that the client is satisfied is those employees come and go. I believe that employees and the sales guys, everybody needs to get paid on time, right? And that was kind of one of my commitments in business. One of the things that I did right is no matter what, never have I told an employee, hey, you can't get paid today, I'm going to pay you tomorrow, right? Or I'm sorry, the money hasn't come from the insurance company yet, so I'll have to pay you tomorrow. I've never said that, and that's one of the things that is believe it or not a big problem in the construction industry. That's why employee traction for me is very high because we've been paying them on time. Now, employees regardless come and go because in sales positions, not everybody can do sales. As you know, as I know, when it comes to door knocking, prospecting, right, there's highs, there's lows, and not everybody is built to do sales. And because of the high turnover rate, I wouldn't say high turnover rate, but it's definitely a higher turnover rate than somebody that's a secretary, for example, right?
Yeah.
Because there's the uncertain factor. How's next week going to be? What happens if we have 3 weeks of rain and not able to prospect, right? But I believe that, in terms of, so that's one way we satisfy employees is by making sure that they're always paid. We have ongoing training twice a week. We have meetings, right? And we keep high accountability on them. In terms of satisfying employees, during those meetings, we force them to communicate with their customers, right? And also, at the same time, we have a great back office staff force, right, that ensures customer satisfaction, right? So because we know that salespeople come and go, we rely the majority of the project outcome on staff members that have secured positions. And I think that, as I said, that's another great thing that we do that other companies don't do because a lot of construction, a lot of roofing companies, they have the sales person handle construction, ordering materials, taking pictures. Sometimes the customer doesn't even know the owner's name or who they work for because they just deal with that one person. They don't even have another contact phone number. Our system is a lot different, and the whole company engages in that customer's project. So even if a salesperson was to quit, which is unlikely, but even if they were to quit mid-project, the homeowner would not even notice, right? So that's how we ensure customer satisfaction.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So there's a cycle of training and like making sure everything is taken care of, even if somebody slips out of the door.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of checkpoints throughout the process, and there's a lot of people that are responsible for said clients' satisfaction. So it's very difficult for a customer to have a bad experience because there's 6, 7 people that are focusing on his project outcome. So even if we were to have one customer that, or one person that neglects their job, there's still going to be another 6 that are 100% taking care of that client.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
Then I got carried away by my first question. I completely forgot about what I was gonna ask. Oh, anyway, it's really great to catch up with you. It's been more than 10 years, 12 years, 11 years.
I think it's been a long time. I think it's been a long while. Yeah.
It was 2009 school year when I was at Andrews.
It was a very long time, and I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Keep
Wow,
on.
10 years after, you're you're we're both business owners. I'm teaching at home and you're working for houses.
Yeah, yeah. Life is crazy, man. Life is definitely a journey. But I definitely hope that we will see each other at one point in person. I know that Andrews has their alumni weekends and everything.
Oh man, you just remind me of my last question. So, okay, so I'm interested in actually farming in the future, not like immediate future, but long term future. And I'm like planning on living in the country, and then like, I mean, you're dealing with fixing things all the time. So what would you recommend as someone that is completely inexperienced in country living but would like to farm, would like to live in the country, would like to target people in the city or suburb area to market produce? I don't know. What did you recommend I should do?
In what country?
I'm thinking about United States, but I heard a lot from my friends that Texas is the best place to move because it's just so cheap, like to build and yeah, that's what I heard.
A great question. So and I think that Texas was uh, and still is cheap, but prices are going up tremendously.
Oh, I see.
And it's getting more expensive, but still compared to the rest of the United States,
Yeah.
it's definitely very very good. Now, again, the reason why I asked you what country is because obviously I only know how to market here, and I know that every culture is different, right? The way we interact. But I think the most important part to every business is finding your clients, right? And in your case, those would be grocery stores. Uh, you know, I think sometimes we overcomplicate our lives in the sense that we keep on thinking that there's some special formula as to how one brand is on the shelves of a specific grocery store. But what I learned is I think it's important to just make some phone calls to corporate, right, and figure out, hey, what are your requirements? Because sometimes, especially if you want to market to large grocery stores, and again, I don't know if this was your specific questions, but there's a lot of requirements, there's a lot of certifications, there's a lot of regulations to ensure that your produce is of quality or the quality standard they're looking for. So I think it's just about starting at corporate and then figuring out how you can get over there. Obviously, not a tremendous amount of marketing is going to be necessary because your clients, right, which are going to be these uh, commercial retailers are going to be a lot less than mine. For example, with me, I have to find every single year, I have to try to find 500 clients, right? Next year, 600 next, right? Well, in your case, all you really need is to find 1 or 2 good grocery stores, right, as your clients. So I think if you cater to them and you really try to develop a relationship with them, and you're able to accommodate, to meet their expectations, it can definitely happen. The only thing that I tell people to remember is, you know if there's other people, right, of your skill set, your intelligence, your right stature, whatever, if there's somebody out there that's successful that is like you, right, you can do it too, right? That's what
Yeah.
you don't. A lot of times, I think we look for those people that, in our mind, are oh, this person has that special thing, but you don't need to have necessarily a special thing or a special quality to become very, very successful. I think you just need to have the perseverance, right? And I'm not speaking necessarily to you, I'm speaking to whoever's watching. I'm also speaking to myself, right? Because that was my big thing: is how can I become successful when there's so many other people out there that are smarter, taller, better looking, better communicators than you, more passionate, harder working, they sleep less, they work more, right? They have more energy. And you don't necessarily have to be the best to be successful. You just need to be hardworking, right? And successful, I think, will follow. But that's exciting, man. It'd be cool if you moved to Texas. Well,
Yeah, I'm constantly listening to podcasts about farming and marketing and different things, and going to YouTube, and I'm just studying and gardening. That's all I can do at this moment.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's okay too, right? Because I mean, if you buy a location that's prime location, you can start out by having a stand, right? I mean, in California, we were driving all the way to Monterey on Highway 1, there would be all these stands, these fruit stands, and they were there on a daily basis. Of course, I'm going back to what I'm saying, which is, certifications, regulations. You want to make sure you're legally protected. Obviously, if you have a legitimate business name and somebody eats your tomato and they try to blame you for getting, sick in the hospital, you want to be protected, right? You want to have liability insurance.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of different aspects, but, I think, it's all you have to think about is, hey, what made me buy this product, right? And then become the reason for the buyer's impulse.
Oh, so I need to getting down to the business by talking to them and figuring out what I need to exactly to meet their requirements, and
Yeah.
Stay open and stay strong. So, wow.
I remember at one point I was wanting to open up a food truck, and
Yeah.
there was a college next to where we lived,